I, Priyanka, giving a lecture on immunological diagnostic procedures. So first of all, what is immunodiagnostic? Immunodiagnostic is a technique that uses antigen-antibody interactions. The concept of immunodiagnostic starts in immunology from in 1960s for the test for insulin and in 1970s for test of thyroxine. Then it is based on antigen-antibody interactions. And what is antigen? First of all, we know that what is antigen. So antigen is any foreign substance that induce our immune system. That may be bacteria, RBCs, WBC, or it may be produced inside the body. For example, some toxins produced inside the body. Antigen may be in soluble form or maybe in particulate form. Then antibodies. What are antibodies? Two types of antibodies are basically used in immunodiagnostic procedures. First, monoclonal antibodies and polyclonal antibodies. Polyclonal antibodies. Polyclonal antibodies are produced that are not specific for a particular antigen. Means they are specific for more than one antigens. While monoclonal antibodies are specific for a particular antigen. Monoclonal antibodies produced by hybridoma technology. Means by using skin cells with myeloma cells. So, next, a difference between polyclonal and monoclonal antibodies. A comparison we can give, that is polyclonal are cheap to produce while monoclonal antibodies are expensive to produce. Polyclonal antibodies are mixed populations of antibodies while monoclonal antibodies are single antibody specifically. These are tolerant of small changes while monoclonal antibodies are not tolerant for small changes. So, various diagnostic procedures are used in immunodiagnostics such as these are various types of immunological diagnostic procedures that are used. That is agglutination. First, what is agglutination? Agglutination is a reaction between a soluble antibody and a particulate antigens. In agglutination, when antigens and antibodies interact with each other, a visible clumping form that is visible. So, what is clumping? When particulate antigen and the antibody that is in soluble form interact with each other, the cross-linking between antibodies that form a visible clumping, that is called as agglutination. In agglutination, two steps are mainly involved. First is sensitization. In sensitization steps, antigens and antibody interact with each other. Then second is cross-linking. In cross-linking, various antibodies cross-links with each other and form a clumping, that is known as agglutination. Agglutination can be used for diagnosis of different diseases. In blood typing, we also use that agglutination, which is known as heme agglutination. By heme agglutination, we identify the blood group of a person. Then second is precipitation. Second is precipitation. In precipitation, soluble antigen and soluble antibodies interact with each other and a precipitate line is formed. As in agglutination, we use particulate antigen, but in precipitation we use soluble antigen and soluble antibody. So precipitation occurs maximally when both antigens and antibodies are in optimal proportion. Excess of any one of the substance, that is excess of antigen or excess of antibody, does not precipitate, means not maximum precipitation occurs. complex are formed, that is small or sometimes no complexes are formed. So precipitation occurs in fluids and in gels. In fluids, we can also this is the precipitation curve. In precipitation curve, we know that where the optimal concentration of antigen antibody reaches, the equivalence zone that determines the optimal concentration, that is antigen access zone and antibody access zone. The complexes that are formed are in small, but in equivalence zones, the optimal concentration of antigen and antibody form a precipitin line, or large complexes are formed. Now precipitation in gels. Precipitation in gels known as immunodiffusion. It is of two types. First is radial immunodiffusion and second is octalonic double diffusion. First, radial immunodiffusion. In radial immunodiffusion, it is also known as single immunodiffusion. Means a single substance, that is antigen diffuse and an antibody containing gel. For this process, we place antibody in gel, then pour on a glass plate. We create a well in the glass plate, then pour antigen into the well. After some time, antigen diffuses into the gel and where reaches the optimal concentration of antigen and antibody, a precipitin line is formed. The area of precipitin curve is directly proportional to the concentration of antigen. Means by precipitin curve, we also determine the concentration of the antigen in our sample. Second is double diffusion. As the name indicates, in double diffusion, both the substances, that is antigen and antibodies, are diffused towards each other and precipitin lines are formed. So by double diffusion, we also determine while the antigens share same epitopes or they share different epitopes. These are of three types. First, identical, means by double diffusion, we also determine why the antigens share similar epitopes or not. In first, the antigens are placed in well, that is A1 and A2. This is antibody. Second, B1, B2. This is antiserum B. This is antigen C1 and C2, and this is antiserum C. So, in first, this antiserum reacts with antigens, diffuse and a precipitin line is formed. If precipitin line forms, it means this is partial identity. It is identity. Means both the antigens share similar epitopes. In second, this is antiserum B and these are antigens B1 and B2. If precipitin lines form this type, it means both the antigens share some epitopes but don't share some other epitopes, means partial identity is found. In third, this is antiserum C, these are antigens C1 and C2. Means lines form, precipitin lines cross each other, means they share no epitopes that are similar, means non-identity. Next is ELISA. ELISA means enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. Enzyme linked means, as the name indicates, it involves enzyme. In ELISA, various types of enzymes are used for diagnosis purpose, means for detection of antigen or antibody in sample. Many enzymes used, for example, PORS, that is peroxidase, alkaline phosphatase. So these are based on enzyme substrate reactions. ELISA is of three types mainly. First is indirect ELISA, second one sandwich ELISA, and third one competitive ELISA. First, indirect ELISA. In indirect ELISA, antibodies detection takes place. So how we can detect antibody in indirect ELISA? First, the wells are created which are used for for antigen, then primary antibody for that particular antigen added, then secondary antibody which is specific for the primary antibody is added, and the secondary antibody is conjugated to a enzyme, then a substrate specific for that enzyme is added, then the reaction between enzyme and substrate create a colored reaction. The colored reaction is measured with the help of a spectrophotometer, and the sample that containing the antigen is identified. So in indirect ELISA, basically we identify the antibody, the concentration of antibody in the sample. Second one is sandwich ELISA. Sandwich ELISA. In sandwich ELISA, as the name indicates, it is a form of sandwich. Means, first of all, antibody is incubated in the well, then apply antigen, and then again secondary antibody. So it forms a structure like sandwich. In sandwich ELISA, we determine the concentration of antigen in the sample. So for antigen determination, first of all, we incubate primary antibody in the well. Then a sample containing the antigen is applied, antigens bound to the antibody, and if free antigen remains in the well is washed. Then again secondary antibody specific for primary antibody is added, and secondary antibody is conjugated to an enzyme. Then a substrate specific for that enzyme is added to the wells, and if free antigen or antibody is removed by washing steps. In the last, a color reaction produced. The color reaction is measured with the help of a spectrophotometer, and we determine the concentration of antigen in the sample. Third one is competitive ELISA. In competitive ELISA, competition between antigens and antibody takes place. In this procedure, first we incubate antigen and antibody in a well. Then after incubation, the mixture of antigen and antibody is applied to the well. In wells, the antigen is already present. Then the amount of antigen present in sample, the more amount, the less antibody is present for binding to that antigen. So a competition takes place between antigens and antibodies. In last, secondary antibody applied and substrate applied, and then color measured. So next technique is radioimmunoassays. As in enzymes, we use enzymes and substrate reaction. In radioimmunoassays, we use radio-labeled antigens or antibodies for measurement of antigen or antibody concentration. It is a very sensitive technique. Measure concentrations of antigens, for example, hormone in blood. It measures a very low amount of antigens, means very sensitive techniques, and measures very small quantity of antigens in the sample. For this, a known quantity of antigen is made radio-labeled, then applied to the sample, applied to antibody in coated wells. A known amount of antigens that are radio-labeled applied to antibody coated wells. Then unlabeled antigens, means the sample containing of antigens to be determined are applied to the wells. The unlabeled antigens then competed with the radio-labeled antigens. As more antigens present in the sample, more radio-labeled antigens displaced by the unlabeled antigens in the sample. So in supernatant we found radioactivity. So more the concentration of antigens in our sample, more radioactivity is found in the supernatant. So we can determine the concentration of antigens in our sample by measuring the radioactivity in the supernatant. Third, last is immunofluorescence assays. Immunofluorescence assays. We use immunofluorescence molecules for this detection method. As in ELISA, we use enzymes, and in RIA, we use radiolabeled antigens. So same as in immunofluorescence assays, we use antibodies that are labeled with fluorescent molecules. So, what are fluorescent molecules? Fluorescent molecules are molecules that produce a fluorescence. So, the antibody is first labeled with fluorescent molecules. We use fluorescent molecules commonly, rhodamine. Some other fluorescent molecules also are used, but commonly used are rhodamine, and some other use phycorythrin, phycoglyproteins are also used. So on the basis of fluorescence, we measure the antigen-antibody reactions. Now, types of immunofluorescence. Immunofluorescence is of basically two types, that is direct immunofluorescence or indirect immunofluorescence. First, direct immunofluorescence. In direct immunofluorescence, only one type of antibody is used. This is antigen, antibody. This antibody is labeled with fluorescent molecule. This is direct immunofluorescence. Second is indirect immunofluorescence. In indirect immunofluorescence, we use two antibodies. This is antigen, that is primary antibody. Then we use secondary antibody specific for the primary antibody, and that is conjugated to a fluorescent molecule. So, in direct immunofluorescence, we use only single types of antibody, that is directly conjugated to a fluorescent molecule. While in indirect immunofluorescence, we use two types of antibodies. First antibody, that is linked to antigen, and the secondary antibody is specific for primary antibody is added, and secondary antibody is conjugated to a fluorescent molecule. So, in immunofluorescence, the detection is on the basis of fluorescence. Now, applications of immunodiagnostic techniques. So, these are various techniques that are used in diagnosis of various types of disease. For example, bacterial disease, viral disease, and some other disease. These are based on antigen-antibody interaction, so can measure different types of disease on the basis of the presence of antigen or a specific antibody in the sample. These are also used for some serological assays and also used for blood typing, such as heme aggregation is used to identify the blood type of a person. Thank you.